The kitchen looks great on paper, but cooking in it makes you want to go crazy. And fixing it now costs many times more than doing it right from the start. The mistakes in this video will help you avoid both. You'd be awesome if you liked this video. 1. Poorly designed traffic flow. For decades, the kitchen work triangle, the triangular model connecting the stovetop, sink, and refrigerator, was the cornerstone of kitchen design. It worked well for small, enclosed kitchens and single-person cooking. But modern kitchens are different. Open spaces, multiple users, and children doing homework on the kitchen island while you cook. The traditional triangle has become too rigid. Many designers are now shifting to the kitchen zone system, a functional zoning system with 5 areas based on actual activity. The food zone includes the refrigerator, pantry, and dry goods. This is where you start each cooking session, so it needs to be near the kitchen entrance for easy restocking after grocery shopping and close enough to the preparation area to access ingredients without having to walk around. The non-consumable item zone, meaning dishes, glasses, and cooking utensils, should be near the sink and dishwasher because that's where clean items come out. If you have to carry a stack of freshly washed dishes halfway around the kitchen to put them away, you'll understand why this location is important. The restroom area contains the sink, dishwasher, towels, and dish soap. This is the central hub because you return here constantly, from initial vegetable washing to final cleanup. Placing it in an easily accessible location from all sides will significantly reduce the number of steps you take each day. The preparation area is where ingredients are cut, pre-processed, and mixed. It needs the most countertop space and is also where you stand the most. It should be located between the food preparation area and the cooking area so that ingredients move naturally from the refrigerator, across the cutting board, and onto the stove. And the cooking area contains the stove, oven, and utensils used directly. Pots, pans, and spoons should be within easy reach when standing in front of the stove, not in cabinets on the other side of the room. When each area is in the right place, you cook faster and are less tired because you no longer have to walk back and forth dozens of times just to get what you need. 2. Ignoring ventilation and odor extraction. This is the part people think about least, but if done wrong, the consequences appear starting with the very first fried meal. Smoke and grease vapors spread throughout the house and cling to the sofa, and the smell lingers all day even though you finished cooking at noon. The first mistake is choosing a range hood based on style rather than power. Airflow, measured in cubic feet per minute, needs to be sufficient for the kitchen area and cooking intensity. The second mistake is installing it at the wrong height. The ideal distance between the cooktop and the bottom of the range hood is 2.13 to 2.5 feet. Additionally, the width of the hood should be 4 to 6 inches wider than the cooktop to ensure the suction covers the entire cooking area. If you use a recirculating hood with charcoal filters that returns air into the room, odors and grease vapors are actually still hovering inside the house. Prioritize venting directly outside. When venting outside, the ductwork should be as short and have as few bends as possible. Every 90-degree elbow reduces actual performance by up to 25% compared to the machine's specs. Many homeowners install high-power hoods but run ductwork winding through the ceiling before going out. As a result, the machine runs at full power while smoke still dissipates. Request your contractor to run the straightest possible ducting to the nearest exterior wall. There is an area on the countertop that, if too small, leaves no room for prep, and if too large, causes water to drip on the floor every time you cook. Most kitchens are wrong on one of these two sides. 3. The distance between the stove and sink is too close or too far. When laying out a kitchen, many people only focus on the golden triangle between the stove, sink, and fridge. But in daily cooking reality, what is equally important is the space between the stove and the sink. This is actually the most critical prep area of the kitchen where you finish washing vegetables and set them down to chop, then move them to the stove after dicing. Most food preparation tasks happen in this interval. If these two areas are too close together, you have almost no place to set food after washing. Cleaned ingredients have no counter space to drain, and freshly cut items have no place to sit temporarily before going into the pot. Everything overlaps in a narrow space, making you feel like you're cooking in a cramped corner, even if the kitchen isn't actually small. Conversely, If the sink and stove are too far apart, the problem is entirely different. You have to carry wet food over a long distance, and water drips onto the countertop and floor, eventually causing a slipping hazard. The cooking flow is also constantly interrupted because every time you need to wash something extra, you have to leave the stove, go to the other side, and then come back. Experts with practical experience recommend keeping this distance between 24 and 36 inches. This figure is wide enough to place a cutting board and organize prep items, yet close enough to transfer everything to the stove quickly without taking an extra step. This gap sounds small, but when correct, it makes your cooking much smoother. When wrong, every time you enter the kitchen feels inconvenient and frustrating. Note that this figure applies when the stove and sink are on the same continuous countertop. If the stove is on an island and the sink is on the opposite wall, the distance is calculated completely differently because you have to turn around and step across a walkway. In that case, speak directly with your designer about actual traffic flow rather than strictly applying one number. 4. Forcing a kitchen island into a small space. Kitchen islands appear in almost every beautiful kitchen on social media, and so many people assume their own kitchen must have one. But the reality is, not every kitchen is suitable, and when space is limited, trying to cram a kitchen island into the middle of the room can completely ruin the functionality you're expecting. There's a number to remember before deciding. A kitchen island needs at least 3 feet of space on all sides. This isn't an arbitrary number. It's the minimum required to open cabinet doors, pull out drawers, and allow 2 people to walk side by side without having to lean. If your kitchen doesn't meet this requirement after adding the island, it's taking up more than it provides. You'll have to dodge the island to open the dishwasher, bump into bar stools when pulling out drawers, or simply, 2 people won't be able to stand and cook without constantly maneuvering back and forth. It looks good on paper, but living with it every day is a completely different story. In kitchens where there isn't enough space for a fixed island, flexible solutions are often far more effective. A small table placed against the wall creates an extra preparation surface without blocking walkways. A pull-out kitchen cart can be used when needed and folded away when not in use. Or simply a butcher block, a thick, specialized wooden countertop, provides convenient preparation space without taking up any fixed kitchen area. There is a gap in the kitchen that you see every day but never think is a problem, until you climb on a chair, touch the top of the cabinet, and pull your hand back covered in a layer of grease. 5. The gap between cabinets and the ceiling. If you look up at your kitchen cabinets and see a gap between them and the ceiling, you're not alone. This is the most common design flaw that most homeowners accept because they think it's normal. But that gap causes more problems than you realize, both aesthetically and practically. Aesthetically, with the cabinet suspended in midair, the entire system looks incomplete. The line of sight is interrupted, and the kitchen easily feels builder-grade, a mass-produced, unpolished design. This gap also makes the ceiling appear lower than it actually is because the eye is blocked at the top of the cabinets instead of reaching the ceiling, making the space feel cramped. But the real problem is what you'll regret after a few years. Every time you cook, tiny grease vapors rise and accumulate on top of the cabinets. Over time, this becomes a sticky, greasy layer that's extremely difficult to clean. Because it's out of sight and difficult to clean, many people start using it to store decorative baskets, old boxes, and artificial flower vases, inadvertently turning it into an open storage area that makes the kitchen look cluttered. The best solution is full-height cabinets that extend to the ceiling. If the budget is limited, add decorative fascia strips or a stepped drywall ceiling to seal the space. It's inexpensive but makes a huge aesthetic difference. 6. Designing cabinets before choosing appliances. This mistake might sound illogical, but it happens more often than you think. Many people design the entire cabinetry system first, considering it the skeleton of the kitchen, and then choose the refrigerator, oven, and dishwasher. Everything looks perfect on the drawing until the actual installation. The refrigerator protrudes a few centimeters, disrupting the straight lines of the cabinetry. The dishwasher door hits the adjacent cabinet door. The oven and drawers can't open at the same time. You have to close the oven door to access the baking tray. These situations rarely appear on the drawing, but they are incredibly frustrating to live with every day. The reason is that each manufacturer has its own dimensions and installation requirements. Just a few centimeters off is enough to ruin the layout. Once the cabinets are finished, Fixing them is much more expensive than getting everything right from the start. The principle: choose appliances first, design the cabinets later. If you want the refrigerator to be flush with the cabinetry, choose a counter-depth fridge with a depth of 2 to 2.5 feet. Alternatively, when building a new house, ask the contractor to create a recess of 4 to 4.75 inches behind the refrigerator. A standard refrigerator will fit flush without losing any capacity. If two people are cooking in the kitchen and constantly have to dodge each other, the problem lies in a number that most kitchens are missing. 7. Kitchen walkways are too narrow. You bump into the kitchen island when you open the refrigerator and others have to step aside. When two people are cooking at the same time, just one person turning around makes it feel cramped. These situations, repeated daily, become a source of silent frustration. Many people think their kitchen is small, but in reality, it's not small. It's just that the walkways are designed too narrowly. The first number to remember is 3 feet. This is the minimum for walkways in a kitchen where one person can move and work relatively comfortably, open cabinet doors without having to step back, and turn around without bumping into anything behind them. However, if your family has many people using the kitchen, and in fact, most families nowadays do, husband and wife cooking together, children getting water, friends chatting around the kitchen island, then 3 feet won't be enough. In that case, the ideal walkway should be about 4 feet wide. This space allows two people to walk side by side or work on opposite sides without constantly having to dodge. This difference of about 0.98 feet is the line between a kitchen that's inconvenient and one that's truly comfortable. Use a tape measure to measure the distance between opposing cabinets and between the island and the wall. Anything under 3 feet will be inconvenient every day. Fixing on the blueprints is 100 times easier than fixing after installation. 8. Lacking outlets or placing them in the wrong spots. You just plug the coffee maker into the only outlet near the countertop. And now you want to use the blender but have to unplug the coffee. Or you want to plug in a kettle at the island, but the nearest outlet is on the opposite wall, so you have to stretch a cord across the walkway. Sounds familiar, right? This is the consequence of placing outlets according to minimum construction standards, instead of how you actually use the kitchen every day. A rule that many experienced designers apply is that outlets on the kitchen wall area should be spaced about 3 to 4 feet apart. It sounds like a lot, but when you count the coffee maker, kettle, blender, toaster, and other small appliances your family uses daily, that number is just right. If the kitchen has an island, adding outlets on the side or under the countertop overhang is very convenient, especially when the kids sit there to do homework on laptops. Specialized areas like a pantry or coffee station should also have their own outlets so appliances can stay put, plugged in and ready to use, instead of being plugged and unplugged every time. Beyond functionality, the sight of a white plastic outlet cut into the middle of a beautiful stone backsplash breaks the entire continuity. A solution many high-end kitchen designs use is placing hidden outlets tucked under the bottom of the upper cabinets, facing down. They are nearly invisible, yet close enough to plug in any device. There is a simple reason why chopping vegetables in your kitchen always lacks light even though all the lights are on. The fault lies in the light's position, not the wattage. 9. Improper lighting. The kitchen looks bright overall, but when you're cutting vegetables or preparing food, the area directly in front of you seems a bit dark. You think the lights aren't bright enough, so you turn them on more, but it's still the same. The problem isn't the wattage of the lights, but their placement. When lights are placed behind you while cooking, your body blocks the light source. The entire countertop area in front of you is in slight shadow, enough to make cutting uncomfortable, but not clear enough to pinpoint the cause. This is the most common lighting mistake in kitchens, and it occurs in many kitchens that only use a few ceiling lights in the middle of the room. The most effective solution is to add task lighting, which is light that directly serves the work area. Under-cabinet LED lights shining directly onto the countertop are the most common method, ensuring the food preparation area is evenly lit regardless of where you stand. The cost of under-cabinet LED strips is typically only $50 to $150 for the entire kitchen area, and the difference in cooking is immediately apparent. Beyond task lighting, installing dimmer switches for the kitchen lighting system also creates considerable flexibility. Brighter lights are available for working while cooking. In the evening, when the family gathers around the kitchen island, the lights dim to create a warm and relaxing atmosphere. The same kitchen can feel completely different depending on the time of day, and you only spend an additional $20 to $40 per dimmer switch. 10. Use traditional base cabinets instead of drawers. You want to retrieve the cast iron pan located in the far corner of your base cabinet. To do so, you have to bend down, open the cabinet door, clear away the stacks of pots and pans in front, reach deep inside, and pull the pan out. Then, you bend down again to put all the pots and pans back in. The whole process takes several minutes for an action that should only take a few seconds. This is an inherent problem with traditional base cabinets, the deep compartments with a single front opening door. When you open the door, you only see the outermost layer of items. Everything behind is hidden, and over time, the items in the back corner are almost forgotten because retrieving them is too much of a hassle. In modern kitchen designs, many experts recommend replacing deep compartment cabinets with drawer banks. When you pull out a drawer, all its contents are brought out at once. You see everything immediately without bending down to search, and each item can be retrieved in seconds. A good drawer system typically has deep compartments for pots and pans, medium-sized compartments for dishes and containers, and shallow compartments for small utensils. When everything is in its proper place, the kitchen operates much faster and more efficiently. If your kitchen already has built-in drawers and you don't want to replace everything yet, you can still significantly improve it by adding pull-out shelves, which are sliding shelves that allow items inside to be pulled out. For hard-to-reach corners, Lazy Susan, a rotating shelving system, utilizes corner space much more effectively than leaving it empty or stuffing items in and never taking them out. Kitchen cabinets are easier to use. But what about countertops? If you're using marble because it looks beautiful in pictures, there's a fact about chemistry you should know before your next glass of wine falls. 11. Choosing materials that don't suit your lifestyle. Many people are drawn to the beauty of kitchen countertops in pictures or showrooms when choosing materials. But there's a far more important question that few ask themselves before deciding. Will this material withstand the way my family uses the kitchen every day? Marble is the best example. Its soft veins and luxurious surface look stunning in every design magazine. But marble is essentially calcium carbonate, meaning it reacts with acids. Lemon juice, vinegar, and wine can all leave stains or corrode the surface, requiring regular sealing. If you cook frequently and don't want to constantly monitor the countertop, marble becomes a source of stress. Butcher block, a thick wooden countertop, is similar. It feels warm, natural, and beautiful. But it requires regular maintenance, periodic oiling, and care with standing water. For many families, especially those with young children or who cook a lot, granite or quartz is often a more sensible long-term choice. Granite is durable, heat-resistant, and less sensitive. Quartz requires virtually no maintenance, is impermeable, and doesn't need sealing. After 5 years of use, the surface that retains its original condition is truly worth the money. 12. Chasing design trends. Social media is full of kitchens painted in glossy red, neon green cabinets, or strikingly patterned countertops. They look impressive in photos, and you're easily drawn to the idea that my kitchen should be something different too. But the problem is that such bold trends often have a very short lifespan. What looks new today may look outdated in just 3 or 4 years. And changing cabinets, countertops, or flooring isn't like changing clothes. The cost and time involved are significant. Many experienced designers apply a simple but very effective principle called the 80-20 rule. About 80% of a kitchen should be dedicated to long-lasting neutral elements. These are the cabinets, countertops, and flooring, the most expensive and hardest to change components. Colors like natural wood, warm beige, navy blue, or neutral tones tend to last for years without going out of style. The remaining 20% is space for you to express your personality and experiment. Bar stools, pendant lights, decorations, small accessories, and even the paint color of an accent wall all are easily changeable and inexpensive when you get bored or trends change. Thanks to this division, the kitchen retains its personality, but its backbone maintains elegance and stability for years. When a trend goes out of style, you can replace that 20% in a weekend instead of having to renovate the entire space. This final section talks about the tiny details that make the difference between a good kitchen and a truly livable space. 13. Small details create a high-end kitchen. You might get the layout, materials, and lighting right, but stepping into the kitchen still feels like something is missing. This feeling comes from dozens of small details you interact with hundreds of times a day without noticing. The first group is functional friction, small, recurring inconveniences. Opening 3 drawers just to find a utensil, walking halfway around the kitchen just to throw away a piece of trash. Each task takes only a few seconds, but repeating it dozens of times creates a feeling of inefficiency. This is solved by placing everything in the right place at the right time, minimizing unnecessary actions. The second group is sensory design, design based on the user experience. Soft close drawers close smoothly, unlike the harsh click. Solid metal handles feel substantial, unlike hollow plastic. Responsive light switches create an impression of quality. Combined, they create a premium feel that you experience every day. And the final group is intentional design, where every detail is chosen consistently instead of being decided by the contractor. Electrical outlets match the cabinet handles. The trash can is integrated into the cabinet system. A drawer organizer keeps everything in place. It costs very little extra, but it makes a huge difference between a beautiful kitchen upon delivery and one that will satisfy you for years to come. Next time you sit down with the contractor or designer, bring a tape measure and 3 numbers. 3 feet for walkways, 2 to 3 feet between the stove and sink, and 2.13 to 2.5 feet for the range hood. Those 3 numbers are enough to check on the blueprints whether the kitchen you're about to build is actually functional or just looks good on paper.